For joining us today. As you know, we're going to be revising our concentrated animal feeding operations general discharge permit. This is one of the public comment meetings that is a part of that process, and we look forward to hearing everyone's comments, and then we look forward to responding to each one of those. So I'm actually going to hand it over to our new division chief, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Alexis Capes, and I will be your moderator tonight during our public comment session. We just have a brief presentation for you, less than 5 minutes to go over a couple housekeeping items, and then we will go ahead and open the floor up so everybody can go to give public comment. All right, so tonight brings us to our 5th public hearing on the AFO permit. We did 3 in person. This is our 4th, and then we also did a virtual. The public comment period has been extended to January 2nd, 2026, and tonight will be open for anybody to give public comment. You can email comments, and you can also mail in your comments. Anybody who hasn't signed in, we do have a sign-up sheet, and then you can check whether or not you would like to give public comment tonight. And then there's also literature over there on the table by the door if anybody needs anything. So just a little bit about our agenda tonight. We're just going to go over briefly about the permit. We're going to talk a little bit about our guidelines for giving public comment tonight, what's different from the 19 permit to the 25 permit, and then we'll go ahead and open up the comment session. So all large animal feeding operations must have a discharge permit. It's necessary to protect water quality and to comply with federal and state regulations. This number here, the NPDES, is our NPDES permit number, which is also our 25 AF. It is housed under our Land and Materials Administration, and a contact phone number if you need it, which will also be at the end of the PowerPoint, or you can ask any one of us at the end up here, and we'll give you more information if needed. So who needs this permit? Existing facilities currently registered under the 19 permit have continued coverage under this permit. So medium and large animal feeding operations, AFOs, are also considered CAFOs if they discharge or propose to discharge to surface or groundwater. Any large AFO that does not qualify as a CAFO is designated as a Maryland animal feeding operation, also known as a MAFO. MAFOs must also have a discharge permit, and any other AFOs may be required to be covered at the discretion of MDE or EPA. This is just a brief graphic that shows some of our different permits that we have, from our dairies or cattle to horse operations or duck operations across eastern and western Maryland. Some definition changes you'll see. If an animal is confined for any portion of the day, it is counted as a full day on the facility. 45 days of confinement does not have to be consecutive, and 45 days of confinement does not have to involve the same animals in any 12-month period. The processed wastewater definition was clarified. A site definition was added. Land or water area where any facility or activity is physically located or conducted, and adjacent land used in connection with the facility or any activity was added to the definition of site. Some policy changes, email added for the notice of intent submissions. There's a separate time frame for an implementation plan that was removed. It's now included in the required plan. It also clarifies that CAFOs would need an air quality permit if they are operating incinerators for mortality management. Pothole management requirement was added, and new requirements for land application during winter restrictions was added to the permit, and the permit transfer process was updated. Waterline inspections must now occur in between flocks. New source performance design criteria was expanded to apply to all animal types and not just poultry. The permit holders must notify the department of any mailing address changes, and an email address for noncompliance was also added. And language related to continuing coverage and permit renewal was updated. So tonight for our public comment session, We ask that everybody sign in, let us know whether or not your address, any organization you're from, if applicable, if you do want to give public comment tonight or not. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes. Anything longer than that can be submitted in writing to us, and we just ask that everybody please be respectful of one another and everybody's time. So we do have a timer we're going to put up on the screen for the 2 minutes, and then once the timer goes off, we just ask that you finish up what you're saying, and we're going to go off our sign-in roster, how we're going to do the public comment. And then if anybody still has something they want to say, we will be here till 8 o'clock at night. So if you would like to come back up, if you still have more to say or you didn't get to finish what you were saying. So. And then right up here is where the public comment session is. All right, I'm going to hand the mic over to Pamela, and she's going to do call out the names in order how we're going to do for our public comment session.
Hi, I'm Pamela Harris, and I work in the AFO program with Brad and Alexis. And I am going to call out the names of individuals that indicate that they want to speak tonight. Please make sure that you've signed in, even if you're not going to speak. It's important that we have record of who's here. And remember, you have 2 minutes to speak, and we will have a timer. So the first person that I'm going to call is Molly Armas.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Molly Armas. I'm here on behalf of Friends of the Earth, as well as our members and supporters here in Maryland. Can't hear? Is it on? Is that better? I don't know if it's on. Hello? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it all right if I?
If you want to take it off.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. My name is Molly Armas. I'm here on behalf of Friends of the Earth, as well as our members and supporters here in Maryland. Really here to just talk about a couple things. One thing, that we see as a big gap with this permit is, the popularity of digesters and manure to energy projects. We really strongly feel that they should be permitted separately and not incorporated underneath the general CAFO permit. We also feel like there's a need to close the loopholes in manure transport and land application by tracking all transports and really holding everyone that receives manure to the same standards. And then I wanted to just touch on the land application in winter. There's a definition for frozen ground, and it doesn't seem clear how this definition is enforced when it comes to land application during winter months. It seems like, it's confusing the difference between like 1 inch frozen versus 1.5 inches, and then, there seems to be more restrictions around land application of something like fertilizer versus animal manure, and there's a lot more animal manure and wastewater that is being land applied. And so it feels like there needs to be stronger definitions, like more specific months versus using something like the actual land frozen. That doesn't seem as easily enforced as specific months, which is much more common in other states, particularly in the Midwest, where they also have big hard freezes. Thank you.
Okay, the next person is Laura Lee. Laura Lee Opry.
I just want to comment on a few topics. The first topic is, how often does MDE do their inspection of the CAFOs? Is it done regularly or once every 3 years? And also, the watersheds and what is allowed by some of the CAFOs or agricultural farming, such as where my community is in by a paleo channel. And a particular person was allowed to transfer his air quality permits and build a huge building and call it agricultural, put drains in the floor. I don't know why he would put drains in the floor of a big industrial type of operation. And so my concern is what's allowable over a paleo channel? And also, why would an air quality permit be transferable from one area of a county to another area of a county and part residential agricultural when there's houses and neighborhoods very close by? And as a matter of fact, some of this air quality permit that's allowed allows HCl, formaldehyde, benzene, styrene, naphthalene. I can't even say these in the air. So we're in a neighborhood. Like, what is the perimeters that this is allowable to close to neighbors? Thank you.
Thank you. You can just leave it right there on the.
Okay, the next person I'd like to call to the podium is Tyler Talent.
I guess I put this here. I think it's obvious I'm kind of new to public speaking. I want to start off by saying this is no way to kneecap the farm industry, but to regulate bad actors who exploit certain loopholes that cause harmful projects and operations to be passed. And it's up to MDE that has this authority to enforce this job and regulations, which these projects. Oh, sorry. Again, this is new to me. These operations, which can cause irreparable damage to not just the environment, but the people around it. The operation next to me, earlier this year, cleared out a chicken house, which had at least 2 feet high of chicken litter stored inside, which was stored for 4 years. I don't know how an operator who only owned it for 1 year could store it for 4 years worth, but that's something to look into with the paperwork. Across these 4 years, we had no idea living next to it that it was being stored up, but when they were taken off, there was multiple conveyor body trucks having to take off the litter. Would MDE consider that building not contaminated? Would MDE believe that there is no harm in this practice to store waste this way? And this is out of CAFO. Well, it just seems like there's no enforcement or regulation that is being pushed onto these houses or anything. Because you got to think there's the issue with the bird flus and everything else. And the groundwater is also an issue, seeing how it's right on top of the Paleo Channel. Anyone native to the area knows that is the main source of water that even our hospital uses nearby. So for it to be tapped into and potentially it can contaminate is an issue. Also seeing how the operator next to me has actually flooded one of the chicken houses for whatever reason, as well as power washing chicken cages. One can imagine if MDE, whoever was to test the groundwater or soil, something would probably come up. When I try to look up information on the permits, some were missing, some not at all. It just feels like someone along the way had rubber stamped a lot of these things for CAFOs and AFOs without looking into the project proper. Again, this is nothing against MDE or anybody. Man, and not to mention, it is just kind of disturbing watching days in a row of him carrying front-end tractor buckets of dead chickens again and again. Mind-boggling how much he'd taken off. And this was as of recent, probably a week ago. It just is very concerning behavior, and in short, I just would like to see more investigation and eyes on projects like this on CAFOs, because, you know, we've already had problems with DAF tanks, we've already had problems with living next to these things. Sorry, I had more, but kind of stuttered out there.
You can leave it right on there. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay, thank you very much. The next person I'd like to call to the podium is Laura Schmidt, representing JHU.
Hello. Hello. Okay, thank you. My name is Laura Schmidt, and I am a member of the Community Science and Innovation for Environmental Justice Initiative at the Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg School of Public Health. Our initiative conducts research that addresses community-identified environmental and public health concerns of residents of Maryland's Eastern Shore related to the cumulative burdens of air, land, and water pollution. Our community partners with the Sentinels of Eastern Shore Health and Sussex Health and Environmental Network have been requesting changes in Maryland state permitting to fully account for the existing burden and cumulative impacts of high-density industrial livestock production in any new environmental permits or permit renewals. Through our ongoing community-led research, we have found that these requested changes are vital in ensuring that the permitting process is just and protects all who live near and work in and near this expanding industry. The Eastern Shore of Maryland hosts a high density of poultry CAFOs and related infrastructure, such as poultry processing plants and waste-to-energy projects. CAFOs emit substantive amounts of several common pollutants, including ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, and methane, which are released into air, water, and land in the communities situated near these facilities. For years, residents of the Eastern Shore of Maryland have vocalized high concern over the public health implications related to proximity to poultry CAFOs. Studies have found that proximity to more and larger poultry operations could increase the risk of several health impacts, including increased occurrences of respiratory disease and community-acquired pneumonia, as well as associations with reduced gestation time and birth weight. There are widespread biosecurity concerns with epidemic and pandemic pathogen spillover between poultry and humans living at the fence line. In addition to CAFOs, residents of these communities now must contend with issues due to CAFO manure digesters and biogas, which have been hailed in the region as green solution to the waste problems of the livestock agriculture industry. The distribution of poultry industry across the Eastern Shore disproportionately impacts low-income communities of color. While there have been public meetings about draft permit renewals, there has been a lack of inclusion of communities impacted by these facilities when discussing general operating procedures. Many fence line neighbors are non-English speaking and have not had equal access to information about the expansion of industrial agriculture in their native language. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person I'd like to call is Desmond Stewart.
All right. The Paleo Channel's water supply lies only about 8 to 10 feet below the surface. Without groundwater monitoring data, the department has no idea if groundwater's quality is protected. MDE needs to require monitoring wells and ensure that data is publicly accessible and comprehensive. In the draft permit, it states, to evaluate the effectiveness of the required plan, the department may require the submission of a sampling plan to determine whether there is a discharge to the waters of the state from the land application areas or production areas. The department may also require the permittee to implement additional monitoring of effluent soils and or monitoring wells either through the issuance of an individual discharge permit to the permittee or through formal non-compliance enforcement procedures where appropriate. Further, for poultry, if outdoor air quality is determined to be a resource concern, use appropriate Maryland NRCS practice standards to address the concern. The science today is evident that outdoor air quality near poultry operations is a concern. We know that historically individual permits are extraordinarily uncommon, so we have to ask what actual follow-up and tangible actions will MDE take through the permitting process and enforcement to ensure operations are attempting to address this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call Rachel Castile.
Hi, my name is Rachel Castile. I live in Salisbury, Maryland. Water is a resource that connects us all. Our bay is an impaired water body, and it's well known and documented that industrial agriculture is the single largest source of nutrient pollution. Yet, when concerned neighbors request to see a facility's nutrient management plan when their environment and health is being horrifically impacted, we are met with NMP information is considered confidential and cannot be shared. How does this immense lack of transparency allow residents to protect themselves? Why is the burden of protection obligation placed on us in the first place. MDE primarily utilizes their website to post notices of intent. I have countless neighbors without internet access, without computers, who in one way or another are not privileged with the ability to check this website with regularity. This does not meaningfully inform or engage the public. In terms of the notice of intent, an EJ score is required upon submission. What happens with that EJ score? Well, the department may provide additional notice by requiring notice to be posted at the facility or public facilities in the area. May here has no teeth. No consideration is warranted about the EJ score when considering the application. MDE also states that communities with higher indicator scores should, in theory, have more opportunities to participate in the permit process and understand a project's potential impacts. Certain permits may require applicants to take action if a census tract has an overall EJ score greater than the 75th percentile. What actual result or action does this ambiguity provide? We know through public records requests that facilities raising tens of thousands of chickens do not even have the required poultry registration form on record with the Maryland Department of Agriculture. This leaves absolutely no traceability, no ability to enforce, and no option to ensure safety. This leaves our communities in the dark. We deserve state agencies that communicate with each other and well. We deserve state agencies that represent us and our neighbors, who go to bat to protect our health, our environment, and our lives. What sort of representation and regulation is incognito, untraceable, and for intensive feeding operations. This burden consistently remains on our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call Ernest Adkin.
Good evening. First, I'd like to start off by stating that MDE failed to notify all the growers that I am aware of. They failed to notify me. I do know that they don't notify DCA, but they need to take a more proactive approach directly with the grower, because DCA only represents about 50% of the growers out here. Additionally, Delmarva Poultry has continued to be plagued by false reports and stigmas of poultry production, polluting the bay, and science has proven otherwise. We know where the real bad actors are. Nobody wants to say it in the room. New enhanced regulations are not what's needed, and EPA needs to hold the real bad actors truly accountable. The construction costs and what goes into construction these days prevents anything going into the bay or actual discharges. Now, getting into the particulates here, particulates and feathers, minimization, I don't even understand how that's going to be measured, monitored, or completed. You all should not be enforcing or trying to create additional rules that cannot be enforced logically. Water line inspections during layout, obviously this requirement here shows that you're out of touch with the poultry grower. Standard operating procedure is to turn the water off to the houses, and it's not turned back on until birds are received again. And additionally, that's when growers usually go on vacation. Transfers and sales, there shouldn't be additional hindrances to people wanting to buy a poultry farm. It's no different than transferring a motor vehicle or anything else. You all should just simply step out of the way, let them sell. It should be a simple real estate transaction. They sell, they want to grow chickens, they go through the registration process. It's already in place, which seems to be working just fine. Plans by NRCS are more than sufficient, and as far as requiring the required plans, such as soil conservation and water quality plans, no land plans doesn't apply. There are a lot of growers out there who are no land plans. I'm one of them. Lastly, this is a water permit, not an air quality permit. That's like taking pharmaceutical law and trying to implement it into motor vehicle law. Stick to the air if you want to talk about air, stick to the water if we're going to talk about water. Thank you.
Thank you. James Dolan. Okay, you had a maybe. So if you want to speak later, let me know. Far Nasir.
Hey, I'm Far Nasir. I'm a grower in Maryland. My biggest problem is with the name CAFO. It's called Confined Animal Feeding Operation. So just coming to this country, you know, we didn't have much, but we could always rely on chicken and affordable protein. And that's what each one of my immigrant friend farmers take pride in giving the communities that we live in, is an affordable source of protein. So it's not a confined animal feeding operation. Maybe you could name it affordable meal plan or affordable meal permit, because that would be a more suitable name for this permit. Thank you.
Next is En Nasir.
Hi, so I'm Ian Nasir. Obviously, my father went before me. And I always wanted to be, as I've told them, I've always wanted to be a second-generation chicken farmer. But with what I've been told today, I don't know how that'll go, because with everything that's happening with CAFO. And hold on one second, please. I have something to read. Yeah, so with everything happening with CAFO, but we've been here for multiple years, a decade and more, and everything has been the same, but I've been told it's not going to go as a family farm. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call Holly Porter.
Good evening. My name is Holly Porter. I'm the Executive Director of the Delmarva Chicken Association. We are the 1,400-member trade association that represents our meat chicken industry, including the growers, the chicken companies, and allied businesses that make up our chicken community on Maryland's Eastern Shore. Thank you for the chance to share at this public hearing. We will actually be submitting much more detailed comments in writing prior to the January 2nd deadline. Generally, DCA is pleased to see that very little has changed between the 2019 and 2025 permit. This will hopefully help expedite the process so that existing growers, farms that have been here for years with no changes, will hopefully be permitted early into the 5-year cycle period, unlike what we saw this past cycle. DCA's concerns are generally around 3 issues: the process for stakeholder engagement, or lack thereof, the additional requirement to check water lines between flocks, and the additional language that has been added around odors, air quality, and particulate matter. For more than 2 years, DCA has asked MDE to meet with regulated stakeholders, as we've done in the past. These meetings allowed for a 2-way dialogue and a better understanding of the chicken community by MDE. Last fall's listening sessions were not that. And this lack of dialogue shows in both the issue where we have nearly $30 million in economic growth stalled due to a lack of a new permit, and the second issue we have, which is asking for growers to check water lines between flocks. You've heard tonight, growers turn off their water lines between flocks. This requirement is burdensome. The lack of engagement also shows in the fact that the current permitted stockholders never received a mailing or an emailing of the notice of determination. We appreciate you working with us, but as it was shared, we unfortunately do not have 100% of the growers. Finally, this permit is authorized under the Clean Water Act, not the Clean Air Act. Not only do we not believe MDE does not have the authority, but there's no clear definition of particulate matter, which is considered a resource concern. I'm pretty sure there's particulate matter around our heads right now, should this church also be getting a water discharge permit. DC and our grower members have been champions of being good neighbors for years, but these arbitrary requirements that are not sound science should not be added. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call to the podium Michael Dolan.
Took me a minute to get up there, sorry. I'm here largely tonight in support of the Families Not Refineries, and I'm listening because, you know, I have not been involved in the chicken industry, and, you know, I don't live right directly next to a CAFO, but I do hear some similarities. I hear that transparency and notification is a real issue, you know, for both residents and for chicken farmers. I think that that type of transparency and that type of notification and potentially finding ways for, you know, the two communities to come together, maybe listening sessions or, you know, something of that nature that would bring the two sides into contact to understand better. But moreover, I am really, really concerned about water quality for us. We do have a unique situation with the Paleo Channel. We do have really sandy soils. My particular community lives right next to the Paleo Channel, and in the past, there were issues with CAFOs there. Now there's potential of problems with dredge. But this is something that, you know, would eventually affect everybody, not just, you know, not one group, not another group. And bringing everybody to the table and having that type of transparency is absolutely tantamount. And having public trust is huge too. Being able to know that all the information's out there, all the testing's available, and that everybody knows what's going on and everybody gets to see at the table. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call on Dwight Pham. Okay. Next, Liam Nugan. Liam? Valeria Nasir.
Hi, my name is Val Nasir. I'm a chicken farmer in Worcester County. I'd like to start off by saying that I'm extremely disappointed that the state of Maryland has allowed this permit to expire. I'd like to add that the amount of inspections that we currently have already are excessive and time-consuming. By adding daily waterline inspections while the chickens are not present, we'll add significant burden on all farmers. All farmers take pride into protecting land and water even beyond what's required. What I can tell you is my daughter is off in a college in a city, and when she comes home to the farm, she has quite literally said how refreshing it is to be home and breathe fresh air. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call Ashley Brown.
Hi, my name is Ashley Brown. I'm a poultry farmer. I desire to work with MDE. I grew up around the Eastern Shore my whole life. My love for the water came from my dad, so I do love the water, and I do want to see it for the next generation to come. But with that being said, MDE has failed to do their job in making sure that the permit was done properly and in time. Unfortunately, if I did not do my side of the permit and if I did not fill out the paperwork, I would not be able to grow the chickens that I have in our chicken houses. We would lose our operation because of that. Did someone lose their job because they didn't get their job done? Another thing that I would like to say is there are many different parts of the CAFO permit that I don't 100% agree with, but one is the in the middle of our flock when we are in between our flock when we don't have chickens, we have to go and check our water lines. Our water is off and there is no water running in those water lines. It is just more paperwork for us to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Petit.
guess I'd just like to reiterate what a lot of people have already said about the water lines, about MDE not notifying the stakeholders. MDE has our addresses. They know everyone involved. Everyone who has a CAFO should have been notified of the new regulations. I'm also curious as to what spurred the new regulations. What is the MDE trying to fix? Well, like what went wrong? Why are we checking water lines now when it wasn't necessarily, required in the past? Is it just a government growth, like people deciding that, well, we need to do something, we can't just sit here and let this thing hum along how it's been. We have to do change to make ourselves feel important. I'm not sure what the purpose of that is. The water discharge permit, again, like's been said, it's a water discharge permit. It's not an air quality permit. And as far as I know, there's no evidence that ammonia is getting into the water. Maybe someone on this side could correct that for me, I'm not sure. But again, we should stick to the water quality issue. The water lines in the house, like I said, I've already said that. If nothing has changed, why are we going through and putting the same exact permit through? Going through, I lay one permit beside the other one and I write out the exact same thing and I submit it once the permit's expired. Isn't there something simple we can just do a no change? Obviously, MDE in the state of Maryland is overworked because the last time we couldn't get our permits through for years. So make it simple. If nothing's changed, just have us do a simple pay the fee and move on, rather than have someone check over all these permits. It should just be no change, pay your fee, move on. And I guess lastly, I think that there's activists that are just going to continue to prod. It doesn't matter what you do, you will never ever have enough regulations in place to satisfy the activists. Just not going to do it. And I think that's what they do. They just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, wanting more and more and more, and we keep giving and keep giving. My time's up. Thank you.
Thank you. Maria Payan.
Hi, I'd like to thank firstly MDE for doing this hearing here. We appreciate that, and we appreciate the ability to have our voices heard. I kept hearing something coming up that no one reached out to the individual farmers. No one reached out to individual community members, and when a CAFO comes into your neighborhood, somebody has to go look on it on a website that they don't even know exists. No notice goes to them. And the reason that I'm saying this is because I'm tired of watching fourth-generation farm owner leave because they couldn't live with the contamination and the health effects. I had a friend whose water was contaminated in the same neighborhood, sold her house because she has children and she can't drink the water. We're on wells out here. The good neighbor policy in lieu of regulation, those days are over. They're science now. We need monitoring. We need monitoring wells. We have people slipping through the cracks. No one's against the farming community, but we're not all playing on the same scale, okay? You have people that are slipping through the cracks, people that are not farming as they should be, bad actors. And that's why we need the regulations. As far as the particulate matter, there's peer-reviewed research. There is fecal filth in neighbors' homes, peer-reviewed, above their refrigerator, where the kids eat the cereal, on the back of the easy chair, where you put your head, on the remote controls that the kids play with their video games. Science matters. And this good neighbor policy hasn't worked years ago. It's definitely not working as science is moving forward. So another thing, the notice I went over. I think we need to really not see this as farmer versus resident, but see this as community members, and everyone wants to protect their interests. And that includes neighbors who are not next to someone who is a bad actor. And that's why we need more regulation on it.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come to the podium and speak? And please state your name for the record.
Everybody hear me? Yes. Fantastic. Good evening. I'm Frederick Johnson. I'm the policy specialist and urban planner for Siege, Inc. That's the Center for Engagement, Environmental Justice, and Health, Empowering Communities. We've heard a lot today, but I think the main thing I want to highlight is making sure that we have purposeful community engagement as well as transparency. For the engagement piece, I think the MDE has held these sessions, but this is just not enough. So when we look at meaningful engagement, it goes further than just draft language. We should require operators hosted meetings in affected communities prior to permit issuance, data dashboards in plain language, and right to file community complaints without retaliation. While nutrient management is important, the permit must explicitly address air emissions, ammonia, particulate matter, odor, etc. That affect respiratory health, especially children and the elderly. This aligns with the Cherish Act goals of protecting health equity as well. For the transparency piece, permit language should include publicly available permit compliance dashboards, clear timelines for inspections, and mandatory enforcement triggers for communities that reach a defined number of citizen complaints or exceed pollution thresholds. As Maryland agencies center justice and community power and environmental decision-making, this permit renewal represents a critical policy moment. Please revise the draft permit to reflect these equity-based protections and ensure that Maryland's agricultural regulatory regime not only preserves the Chesapeake Bay, but protects the most vulnerable residents in the process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? Please state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Monica Brooks. I am a resident here in Wacomico County. Also president of Wacomico County NAACP. And while I'm a state commissioner, I'm not here in that capacity for environmental justice. This is long overdue, is what I'm going to say. For years, with my community, we have been fighting for regulation in this industry. And slowly but surely, bit by bit, little tiny glimmers of light. And the reason why we fought for so long is because there was no oversight. There was nobody who was really checking things and looking in to see what was really going on. Once the permit happened, it was like, so long, farewell, Avita, saying goodbye. Nobody ever came back. But I know that there are changes being made with MDE. More staffing has come, and this desire to do more regulation. And because there's not a requirement in Maryland for well testing, these are genuine concerns, especially for people, the majority of us, especially in the county, are on well water. So we want to ensure that the permitting process is comprehensive. We want to ensure that everyone gets to have a say in how things go. But we have seen what happens in this industry when it is not accountable. For the longest, as Maria made the comment, it should not be this person against farmer. It's not that. It's just accountability. We want accountability for whatever the industry is, and we're already seeing what happens when you don't have accountability, like the residents that are suffering, and some of them are in this room, from the PFAS that is in their water that they cannot even drink from the Purdue factory. So when we talked about, hey, why don't we look at these things? Why don't we try to do legislation even for our air? We tried to get a legislation put in for the Community Healthy Air Act. These kinds of things. These things were fought against for no reason. So I say, would you rather work for an industry that is accountable, where you can be proud in where you're serving, and just add a couple things? Or would you rather have a situation like what these residents are dealing with the PFAS, where they can't even drink their water, they can't bathe in it, and they're suffering? Because nobody wants to hold an industry accountable just because of what they contribute to this community. That's not how it should be. All of us have a right to have clean air, clean water, and in a safe environment. And no one should take advantage of the system and not do the proper procedure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gina Burton. I'm with Shen, but I'm also a community member, not here, but in Delaware. But I just think that monitoring, activists, regulations is not straight. It needs to happen, because my son, raising my son 24 years with asthma, he died at 24. So if you don't want to bury a child early on age where they cannot breathe, have clean air or clean water, you need the regulations.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Danish Hassan. I'm the son of a current grower, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the farmers and also on behalf of the youth that plan to take over. I also plan to take over my father's empire, and I wanted to say that first and foremost, farmers they're not informed of these meetings. This is the second time I've been to one, and we should be receiving some sort of notice either through text or email telling us that there's these meetings. Also, our farmers are a very diverse community, and providing that people that are not able to speak or read the language should be given this CAFO permit in other languages as a choice. And lastly, these farmers, these parents that are building this legacy, they're just doing it for their children and their families, and they want to see their families take over in the future, and you guys have been making that harder for us. And lastly, these meetings, like I said, this is my second meeting, and the idea of speaking and no one giving me a response it's not something that I like. And I feel as we should be giving some sort of response right away.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Gabby Ross, and I represent a community group that's been around for a long time now called Concerned Citizens Against Industrial CAFOs. And I want to set the record straight that we've never been against farmers. We've been against what is going on and is still present now in this room, even after 11 years. And what I want to talk about is back in 2015, what we saw was an unprecedented amount of large industrial scale CAFOs. People coming from outside of Maryland, these were not the normal family farmers that we were being told that were building these CAFOs. And what we're concerned about now is we know what's going on. We know the industry needs more industrial scale CAFOs. We know that waste has now been trucked up as a profitable industry. And what we're concerned about is another event like 2015, where unprecedented build-outs happen, little to no notice to neighbors. And we're concerned about that because we want to support local family farmers, but we want it done right in the right way. And what we want is to make sure that communities are not impacted by 13 industrial-sized CAFOs. That's a lot, and it's a huge burden on a lot of different communities. And I want to also mention that what we're seeing now is that proper procedures are not being followed. Farms that are changing ownership are not filing the proper documentation that's necessary. We use the AFO public tool to look up what's going on. And what we're seeing is a lot of stuff is not being updated. Inspections are not being updated on there. We want to make sure, we need transparency, right? We need to make sure, you know, if the growers are saying that there's a lot of inspections, we're not seeing it on our end, and I want to address that. I do feel, though, that there is a lot of bad actors, and the inspections have laxed on that end, and the fines are minimal. And again, this has nothing to do with being against the family farmer. We just want transparency and we want accountability. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just want to remind you that there are, we do have our material translated into different languages on the side table.
And we will be here till 8 o'clock, so if anybody wants to public comment again, or someone thinks of something, please just come up.
I guess I can speak again, right?
Please state your name again for the record.
Jeff Pettit, and not to make this a debate, but I do hear the talk about industrial size farms, and people would look at my farm and say, I have an industrial size farm. But I can tell you there ain't no factory workers going there. It's my wife and my children that are running the farm. And if you want true industrial farms, keep pushing regulation, keep pushing and pushing and pushing until it becomes so expensive that only large corporations can own farms, and then everything will be on an industrial scale. If you think 6 houses is industrial, wait till you push what I call the family farmer myself out of the market, and you'll see true industrial farming.
Thank you.
Farnas here. I just want to add something to that. Every single farmer here is a family farmer. We all live on our farms, we work at our farms, we live in the communities. We don't have to drive 2 hours to attend this meeting. We actually stay at our farm, we breathe that air, we drink that water, and we encourage our kids to participate in this family farming. Even though it may seem like commercial farming to you, these are individual families that own it, that run it, and you don't have to agree with it, but the fact is that I think all these farmers provide a great service to the communities, contribute a lot to the communities that they're in. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to jump on your coattails there for
Please state your name for the record.
Ernest Atkins. We are family farms, every one of us. On November 20th of 2024, I'm a little confused on what's going on here as far as saying that we're bad actors. I haven't met one of them. I've been to a lot of farms here, and I haven't seen one. Not one. In fact, Kevin Addix on November 20th, 2024, who is the Maryland Department of Agriculture Secretary, told me personally, Maryland is leading the charge in it being environmental stewards. What's he missing? That if he's making those claims, then either what are you missing or what is he missing? You put us all out of business because you keep doing end runs around right now there's no new production going on, fine. Then you try to tighten up the reins, tighten up the nooses around our necks, force us out of business. Like Mr. Pettit said, you're going to have big companies coming in. Down in North Carolina, they're putting in 24 unit complexes. Nobody wants that. And those are small ones. So you have to really decide, do you want to be a backyard farmer? Because back in 20, I don't know how many times I heard during COVID, where's the chicken? There's nothing on the shelf. You might want to think about over-regulating us until the point where you choke us out of business. Thank you.
Melissa Gieslin. I am a Wicomico County resident, business owner, mother, wife, and I also sit on the board for the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce. This meeting was brought to my attention just a few weeks ago when we were in a meeting and we were talking about local commerce, food instability, business challenges. I personally experience a lot of regulation in the insurance industry as well. And what I've learned about regulation is it's absolutely necessary to protect everything that we appreciate in the United States of America. However, in some cases, the more we regulate, it does burden the organizations responsible for enforcing these regulations. Throughout the packet of information I received tonight, I have read that the MDE is already overburdened by much paperwork and we're trying to be more efficient. I have learned that there's already a lot of regulations in force for our poultry farmers that may not be enforced, and those 1% of bad actors is creating a lot more regulation for the people who do the right thing every day. I personally grew up not from here, but I did live out on Karaoke Road next to a really amazing chicken farmer that was very responsible. And one of the things that was brought to my attention that there's a lot of farmers out there right now seeking funding to improve their operation, to make their chicken houses safer for not only their employees, but also the animals that they are growing and taking care of. And a lot of that funding has been put on hold because the permit continues to be delayed. And I was a little discouraged to see that public comments are then again being extended on a conversation so many have been part of for quite some time. Thank you.
Good evening, Monica Brooks, Wicomico County. I wanted to just say one other thing, because I know it's easy to take it personally. You're saying I'm not a bad actor, but there are bad actors, and we have seen them in permits. We here in Wicomico County, there was an individual whose mother passed away. He did not own the land. It had not been put in his name, but he put up a chicken house. And those chicken houses had all kinds of runoff going to the next door neighbor who owns chickens. She has about 300 chickens. And was just running over. He was able to build this stuff. Why? And nobody came to see about it until there was constant complaining. The person who wanted to build the 13 chicken houses here in Wicomico County lived in Virginia, had no intention of moving to Wicomico. So there are people who go and buy these big farms, they scale it out, they're coming in and doing more, just spending more money, they have all this money, and they're buying up our farms. They're not leaving room for the local farmers to stay in these particular things. And then let me add one other thing. Why are the chicken houses so big now? They're so big now because the industry has said, we want you to go big. Go big or go home. When I've spoken to farmers, they've said to me, this is not a model that we've had in the past. This is not something that we ever would have done, but this is what we're being forced to do. So you got to work with what you got. And in that, you get chickens that you don't get to pick. You don't get to pick the food. You just have to grow them. And then when you grow them, they tell you how much money they're going to give you. Whether that money covers your costs or not. They tell you how big your building has to be, what you have to do, all of that. I say all that to say, there's some issues, not just maybe some transparency with MDE, but there's some problems with the integrators too. Maybe that's part of the focus that should be brought up, and what they're doing and how they're forcing people into these situations that are causing so much ammonia, particulate matter, et cetera. And again, and the last part is this excess manure that it's all, oh, it's bio-green energy. That, to me, is a lot, and what we've done in our investigations is a lot of what is behind this push of the large scale, the push, the bigger the better, the bigger the better. And bigger is not always better. I'm not saying you can not be big or not, that's not my business. What I'm saying is that there are individuals who are not compliant. There are people who have fallen through the cracks, and there are people who are intentionally doing so. So it's not you, but they're here. They're right here in Wicomico County, and we are those are people that we are continuing to target, and we're also trying to create an environment legislatively that helps to make those chances of those individuals doing what they're doing much, much harder to do.
I just want to remind everybody that now is your time to talk. If you have something to say to get it on the record, please do so. All the comments from any of the public hearings, anything that's been mailed in, anything that's been emailed, they will all be responded to in a response to comments document once the comment period closes.
Dr. John Moyle. I'm a county resident, raised my kids on a chicken farm, so I've been in these guys' shoes. I do think this is very bad, the way this was handled. We're a year behind. I don't understand why. This is the third time I've been in this position with this state that I've been here that this has been late. But I do want to address the one thing that's been addressed several times, and that is the water, checking water lines. Or is that for everybody? We don't do that in any other industry when people aren't in operation. I don't understand why we're doing it there. There's a lot of comments I could make about the size of farms, but again, with regulation, we're being pushed that way. So again, watch what you're doing on that. Let's have some communication again. We used to have really good communication. It's dropped down. Let's get that back up and running. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Grayson Middleton. I'm with the Delmarva Chicken Association. I hadn't planned to speak tonight, but just a couple things came up that I wanted to address. So people talk, a few folks over here talked about altering practices so that our people could take pride in the work that they do. And I take that as a slight personally, but I can't imagine how some of the farmers over here feel because they work very, very hard every day to adhere to the regulations. Every complaint that I've heard from this side of the room has been an issue of enforcement, not what is in the permit. And so I don't know why we think that adding some of these trivial, regulations to an already extremely complicated permit would, increase the success of enforcement. It would complicate it. I also heard that, nobody over here wants to end farming, but the legislative record would say otherwise. And I would invite anyone to fill out one of these CAFO permits or NMPs. It is burdensome, time-consuming, and unfair to the many proud, wonderful people on this side of the room who work hard every day to make an honest living and feed this country.
Joe Diggs, Wycomico County, Hickory Mill Road. Hickory Mill Road. That's most of our complaints from this side of the room is regarding that area. So I have nothing against chicken farmers. I think you do a great job. There are at least one bad actor that I can talk about, but I don't really think new regulations is my concern tonight. Enforcement of the current regulations is my very big concern. So I will email the rest of it to you. So thank you.